This is the Sonos Era 100, the newest addition in the Sonos lineup. The Era 100 is a smart speaker that is highly touted as one of the best options on the market for its sound quality, and while there is a ton to love about it, there's a couple areas where it falls short in my opinion and may or may not make a difference to you. Today I'm diving into the details on this small but powerful speaker and what makes this stand out both good and bad, so if you're thinking about picking one of these up, or you just want to know more about the Era series, stick around and let's get into it. Hey everyone, Kyle Erickson here. When we think of Sonos, for many of us the first thing that we think of is great sound combined with a simple, modern, well-built design and construction. We're essentially expecting a premium product. I'd originally bought the Era 100 because I wanted to get excellent, well-balanced sound at my desk setup, with it taking up a relatively small surface area, and that's aesthetically pleasing. And from everything that I'd heard on these particular speakers, they seem to fit the bill. When you look at the Era 100, it definitely gives off a premium vibe. You've got a matte plastic finish with a metal grille that goes around most of the speaker. Everything looks super clean and well thought out, from the power cable on the bottom to the touch controls on the top. Those touch controls are simple but effective. You've got a pause play button and back and forward controls along the front of the speaker, and an interesting volume control in the center. You can hit the plus or minus to adjust the volume like you might expect, but what I like is the inclusion of this slide functionality, where you can drag your finger within this groove, similar to a volume knob, which is a lot more useful in my opinion. Just above that groove, there's a voice assistant button, and then if you roll over on the back, you've got this Bluetooth connection button, a mic off and on switch, and a USB-C port. It's a pretty heavy unit, weighing in at around 4.5 pounds, which is quite a bit considering it's just over 7 inches tall and 4 to 5 inches in diameter, but when you look at what's packed inside here, it starts to make sense as to why. Under that grille, there's a woofer which is about 25% larger than the Sonos One, the model that the Era 100 is replacing. You've got dual angle tweeters and a processor that's supposed to be 47% faster than its predecessor as well. All that put together does give you stereo sound, which is uncommon for speakers similar to this, and design-wise, I think it's outstanding, which seems to carry over to the audio quality as well. What initially drew me to the Era series, outside of the fact that I'd heard Sonos speakers before, thought they sounded good, was actually listening to a podcast with the head of sound experience and the CEO of Sonos. Just their passion for music and sound quality got me really excited for these products, and I think looking at audio quality in particular, the Era series is fantastic. On the Era 100, you get a surprisingly full sound with such a small unit. It's well balanced and warm sounding, the bass is powerful but not overpowering, and things come out very clear and crisp. The speaker gets quite loud for its size, way louder than I would ever use it, and in all of the testing that I've done, regardless of the type of music that I'm listening to, or if it's just dialogue or podcasts, it's amazing. Just plugging it in out of the box, it sounds good, but it gets even better when you run through Sonos TruePlay, which essentially uses either the mics in the speaker or in your phone to measure the reflection in your space, and then tune the speaker based on its findings. The quick tuning mode, to my understanding, uses the mic in the speaker, while the advanced tuning mode uses your phone mic as you walk around the room. In my case, going through these options did result in a fuller sound, so I would definitely recommend going through at least the quick tuning option, and that's all done via the Sonos app. This app is a necessity for using the Sonos Era 100 and most Sonos speakers for that matter, so if you're looking for something that is just plug and play where you don't need something like this, I would say that this probably isn't the speaker for you. When you first download the app, you'll go through the process to set up your speaker and do things like quick tuning. And this is also where you'll manage everything related to the Era 100, whether that be for browsing music, adjusting volume, or managing all your Sonos speakers and connections. The app itself has a simple design, and in a general sense, I don't have to worry about it too much, but one thing of note is if you're trying to set up a voice assistant, there's no Google Assistant on the Era 100, but there is Alexa and Sonos' own assistant. The Sonos one is pretty limited. You can really only use it for music playback, and it isn't compatible with Spotify, so you may want to use Alexa if you want to get more out of an assistant. That's really not a feature that I utilize too much, but I do think that it is important to note for some folks, especially since Sonos does support Google on other models. I just don't want anyone buying this with the assumption that the Era 100 includes it as well. The real kicker for me, and more so just as it relates to the Era 100 functionality, are the connection options. The options that you have here are mostly fine. I think that the big sell here, and the way that Sonos predominantly wants you to use this, is through Wi-Fi. This does use Wi-Fi 6, which is a new-ish version of Wi-Fi. It's not the latest standard, but it's still pretty good and a definite improvement over Wi-Fi 5. And that's fine if you're listening to audio only and it isn't paired with video. I've noticed when I choose it on my Mac or my TV through Wi-Fi, there can be a pretty big amount of lag, and it can tend to suffer from some occasional drops. It's just not 100% reliable in that sense. There's also a Bluetooth option, which is Bluetooth 5.0, and I did find that a little bit odd. Bluetooth 5.0 was released all the way back in 2016, so you're talking about a standard that's 7 years old. I would have liked to see that at least 5.2 or 5.3, because there are usually latency improvements with those versions. Latency is a little bit less noticeable through Bluetooth versus Wi-Fi, depending on which device you're connected to, but it's still definitely there. I might be a bit hypersensitive to that because it's something that I'm actively looking for, but if you're just kicking back watching a video, in a lot of cases, you probably won't notice. Lastly, this does have a line-in option, which you'd think would mitigate any potential lag with it being wired. The unfortunate thing is that you need to buy a dongle to actually use it, and the dongle is like $20 for the 3.5mm adapter, or $40 if you want to combine with an Ethernet cable to hardwire your Era 100 to your network, so it's not cheap. This is a proprietary cable, so you can't use one of those USB-C to 3.5mm adapters that sometimes come with phones or cameras. The reason being that those are for audio output, where this is audio input. Personally, I think that it's silly that they just don't use USB-C audio or have a line-in cable included in the box, but in any case, I'm not particularly fond of that connection method either. Like I said, if you're using a wired line-in connection, you're probably expecting no latency and for things to just work, and unfortunately, this behaves a lot like a wireless connection in many ways. The first thing that you'll immediately notice when you use the line-in functionality, or at least I did, is there's an enormous amount of lag in the audio that's actually shocking when you first play something back through the line-in connection. Now, you can go into the app and adjust this. It basically just asks you the audio quality level that you want with a little slider, and it'll show you the latency that you can expect, but you'll notice that there is still some lag on the lower end, which is unfortunate, and the real downer to me is just how finicky it is. With me wanting to use this as a desktop speaker, even with the amazing sound quality, having audio and video in sync is obviously really important, and I'd be totally fine with even dealing with a little bit of latency, to be honest. The problem that I had was, even sometimes with it wired completely separate from latency, it didn't like to push audio out at times, especially if it sat for an extended period of time. So say if I was typing out a document for a while and then I went to YouTube or Spotify, I click play on something and there would be no audio until I hit the volume up or down keys a little, and then it would slowly fade in. Beyond that, it just seemed like here and there it would be out of sync inconsistently, both on my Era 100 and 300, which I also tried out. They both had trouble maintaining Bluetooth connections, and to me that stuff is just a killer when it comes to premium audio products. These speakers are not cheap. You expect to get a premium product when you're spending that much, and while the design and the sound that comes out of here is amazing and really hard to beat at this size, having any kind of connection issues or having to tinker with things really pulls you out of that experience. You should be able to just plug it in, set it, and forget it. As an audio-only device, maybe if you have this in your kitchen or in a living room and you're just using it to push audio out through Wi-Fi, it's a great option. But if you're someone like me who wants to push things a little further and to be a little more versatile with your use, it's not the ideal choice in my opinion, and there are better options out there. If you do really have your heart set on the Era 100 or 300 and you want to use them specifically with video content, you'll probably have a much better experience if you use a Sonos soundbar and use the Era speakers in more of a supplemental role, but that can get pretty pricey. It all just depends on how much you're willing to spend and what you're looking for exactly. With that being said, I'd love to know if you've considered buying a Sonos product, or maybe you have bought one. What are some of the use cases that you've wanted to or have used them for? Let me know in the comments down below, along with maybe some of the areas where you look for great sound, whether that be your office, media center, or around the house. All in all, for my use case, the Era 100 just doesn't quite fit in. I know that the speaker isn't marketed towards really anything but listening to music, but even if you throw away the latency issues, some of those weird connection issues would still be there on some devices, even if you're using this as a music-only device. Hopefully Sonos can address some of these issues with software updates, because the overall quality in both how this is engineered and how it sounds is outstanding. I hope that you found this useful and you enjoyed this video. If you did, feel free to hit that like button. If you want to see more tech-related content, or if you want to help me start a petition to make the Boston Dynamics robots take an oath for their primary objective to never harm people, only to find out years later that they've double-crossed us and doomed all mankind, please subscribe. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next upload.